want to get down to basics now and talk about the C major scale. You may already know how to play a C major scale, or often when I ask somebody if they know how to play a C major scale, if I have a new student and I say, well, play a C major scale for me, I hear something like, and what I just played is 2 octaves of C major, but the high note I played was a D, and the low note I played was a B, and then I came back to C, and that is, there's a C major scale in there. But when we think of scales, really fundamentally, we want to think of them as a single octave first, and beginning and ending on the same note, or the note with the same name. So a C major scale begins and ends on C. And in between, you play D, E, F, G, A, and B. So we have an alphabetical sequence. We can think of it as a circle. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, because it comes back around to the same note alphabetically. And instead of playing it sort of the fast way, on a single hand position, let's play it on a single string. Now that's a little slower. It's a little more difficult to get across the fingerboard. But what it does is it reveals something about the scale that is really essential that I've noticed tends to get overlooked. And that is the actual structure of the scale is not simply based on the notes, but on the intervals between the notes. Now, you may already know that the C major scale is a series of whole steps and half steps. Whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. And if you've seen the scale described that way, nothing wrong with that. Absolutely right, accurate, true. But there's a little detail that is buried in that sequence that I want to explore. And that detail is the way we understand that sequence, instead of as one continuous stream, one continuous flow of whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, if we stop after the first 4 notes and just play C, D, E, F, and then return back to the beginning, C, D, E, F, E, D, C, we have 2 whole steps followed by a half step. Whole step, half step. The way I'm playing it with 1 finger per note, starting on C on the 2nd string, on the B string, 1st fret, going to D with the 2nd finger, 3rd fret, 2nd string, 5th fret with the 3rd finger, and 6th fret with the 4th finger, and then back the same way. Allows us to look at the underlying structure of the scale in a little different way. Those 4 notes, whole step, half step, are then followed by another 4 notes that have the same exact structure. So if we go to G, which is on the 8th fret, with the 1st finger, A with the 2nd finger, B with the 3rd finger, and C with the 4th finger, we find that the second half of the scale follows the exact same structure as the first half. So we've got whole step, half step, and then back the other way. So instead of whole step, half step, whole step, half step, what we have is whole step, half step, take a break, whole step, take another break, whole step, half step. That whole step in the middle is a bridge between 2 4-note groupings. Now there's a geeky theory name for those 4-note groupings. They're called tetrachords. tetrachord means basically 4 notes, 4 strings, 4 chords, for something. Tetrachord is an earlier use of the word chord to mean basically a group of notes, even when you're not playing them at the same time. So the first tetrachord of the scale is whole step, half step. And the second tetrachord is also whole step, half step. First C, D, E, F, then G, A, B, C. That is how the scale is structured, and in fact, that is how the scale was originally created, based on this concept, this idea of the 4-note sequence called the tetrachord. Now, you have to go pretty far back to find this, 1,000 years or so, 2,000 years, a long time. But it really is the essence of the whole system. In fact, this is why we have things like the circle of fifths, etc., etc., etc. The 4-note sequence, C, D, E, F, and then G, A, B, C, also reveals that the last 4 notes of the key of C, G, A, B, C, are in fact the first 4 notes of the key of G. If you have a scale that begins with an interval sequence of 2 whole steps followed by a half step, and ends the same way so that the first 4 notes follow that pattern and then the last 4 notes also follow that pattern, well then the last 4 notes of any major scale become the first 4 notes of a scale or of another major scale or another major key beginning on the 5th step of the scale you just played. So if you play a C major scale, when you get to the 5th step, you have the same interval structure from 5, 6, 7 back to 1. That becomes 1, 2, 3, 4 in the next key. And this is what leads ultimately to the circle of fifths. So when you see the circle of fifths, you're actually seeing something that is derived from the major scale, which is derived from the 4-note tetrachord. Tetra means 4 in Greek. And again, this goes back I don't know, some thousands of years to ancient Greece, where the system that was being used at the time was built on this 4-note sequence. And there are a lot of ramifications to that I don't want to go into right now, but that's what you're doing when you play a C major scale. Chord structure, harmony, everything that you play is built on top of this foundation. And understanding the scale not just as something that you are supposed to play so that you can, kind of learn to play other stuff. I mean, in a general sense, yeah. But it's a little more than that. It's an architectural, structural framework. So let's just go over that again. We've got C, D, E, F, the first 4 notes of the scale. I'm playing with the first finger, second, third, fourth. And then jumping to the 5th note of the scale, the G, using the same physical pattern. And of course, that method of playing the scale, you can do that on any string. It doesn't have to be a C major scale. It can be F, F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F. It can be on any fret position. Now, to really get it, what you realize is that the notes and the intervals are now in your hand and not just on the fingerboard. You can think of the distance between these 2 fingers as a whole step, the distance between these 2 fingers as a whole step, and the distance between these 2 fingers as a half step. The half steps will happen between these 2 fingers, the little finger and the one next to it, the ring finger and the pinky, or the 3rd finger and the 4th finger. And you realize that each of these 4-note sequences simply ends with a half step, and everything else is a whole step. There's a half step at the end. There's a half step at the end. Everything else is a whole step, including the bridge in between the 2 tetrachords, those 4-note sequences. So it's all about knowing where those half steps are. Once you realize that the half steps fall at the end, the last two notes of each tetrachord, then, well, really it simplifies the whole process, and it really gives you a better foundation for going beyond. And we'll do that in a future video, and I hope this makes the C major scale clear and gives you a better understanding of how it works. And if you have any thoughts or comments, please leave them in the comments section, and I will see you soon.